one of the reasons people don't change, why they won't embrace it, is they don't understand why they're doing it. Why am I doing this? Why am I changing? What problem does this solve? If you roll out a process and you don't explain why, people are much less likely to embrace it. Hey guys, Todd here from ConstructionLeadingEdge.com. Hope you're doing well. Maybe you've had an experience like this. Have you ever rolled out a new process to your team, or your project, to your company, and been disappointed by the results? Disappointed by how well or how little people actually follow the process? Have you ever invested in new software, spent a bunch of time and energy and money trying to get it set up, but then your team just won't use it? Maybe it's time tracking software, daily logs, job site photos, some kind of software, and your team just won't use it. Have you ever spent time documenting a standard operating procedure, but then it just feels like it's a constant battle? It's like pushing a rope, trying to get people to do it. Not only does it feel like they're neutral or not interested, sometimes maybe it feels like they're actively resisting it, like they are a bloodhound at finding every reason why this thing won't work and why they shouldn't use it. So maybe you've heard yourself think or say, I need to have processes and systems in place so I can get my business to the next level. If this thing's ever going to run without me, I have to have processes and systems. You've been in a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A and you see that they have processes. Maybe you're like, how does Chick-fil-A get teenagers to follow processes and say, my pleasure? And you can't seem to get the grown-ass men and women you work with to follow a process. Maybe you've thought, I am stuck with these people. Maybe I just need to hire new people. Maybe I need to start over, wipe the slate clean, go hire some teenagers from Chick-fil-A or something. But maybe you've thought, I can't get where I need to be with the people I have. It's just impossible. Well, in this episode, I'm going to pull the veil back on some of the real reasons your team won't change. And many of these reasons have very little to do with them. So this is good news and bad news. So I learned a valuable lesson back in 2015 or 16, and I was working for a real estate developer managing a $20 million industrial building, and we had a big problem. We had a building we were trying to get finished. We had a lease signed with a tenant, and winter was coming, and there was a big section of the parking lot that wasn't finished yet. There was some bad material. They kept undercutting it. And we had this big problem, and the asphalt plants were going to shut down around Christmas. I think this was mid to late November. We had a big problem, and we'd been trying to get this solved for months. This has been going on since August or September. Time just kept ticking on. The closing day for the asphalt plant kept creeping closer, and we were going to be in a position, we were looking down the barrel of a problem that had easily six-figure damages, maybe even seven-figure damages. If we couldn't get this parking lot complete, we could lose this tenant, which would have been extinction-level event for this project. So I remember walking into the job site trailer for this meeting that I had asked the general contractor to schedule, and there was the concrete sub, the paving sub, the excavation sub, general contractor, superintendent were in there. And when I walked in, the body language was all very negative. Lots of folded arms and pissed off looks because we had a big problem to solve and it was going to cost everybody something. And these guys had been being pushed around and probably ordered what to do for a few months, and it just wasn't working. So I walked into that meeting with a plan to try something that I'd never tried before. And I learned a valuable lesson. And instead of walking in there and demanding what people would do and drawing circles around dates on a Gantt chart schedule and threatening people, I was going to try something different because all of that other stuff hadn't worked and it actually made it worse. That's what got us into that situation. So by taking another approach, we actually solved the problem. The team, all the trade partners, it was like clockwork. They went from disorganized and resistant, outright angry and recalcitrant, and they actually all got in line. They all worked together and made it happen. And I learned a valuable lesson. I learned that I was making a lot of mistakes trying to get people to do things, and it wasn't the people. It was how I was going about it. So we're going to talk about some of the real reasons your team won't change. So this will work for you if you are trying to get trade partners on board with the process, if you're trying to influence them, trying to get them to meet scheduled dates or quality. This will work. This will help you if you're a business owner and you're trying to get new processes and systems in place so that your business will run more without you. You can escape day-to-day operations and you can take off some of the hats in your business. Maybe you even be able to take a vacation, be able to sell your business one day. And if you're a leader and you want to roll out some sort of process, basically, if you want to get people to change, if you're leading people and you want to get them to change, this is going to help you. So first of all, I'm going to read an excerpt from a fascinating book on the concept of psychological reactance. This is from a book called Instant Influence, which you're probably going to hear some more about in the next month or two from our team, because this is incredibly valuable. So here's what we're going to talk about. Let me read an excerpt from this. And this is, again, the book Instant Influence by Michael Pantalon, PhD. All right, so here we go. The law of psychological reactance. The first principle, no one absolutely has to do anything, the choice is always yours, is a response to the law of psychological reactance. Here's what it is. The law of psychological reactance says, if someone tells you to do something, you probably won't feel like doing it, even if you might otherwise have wanted to. Okay, let me say that again. Psychological reactance says, if someone tells you to do something, you probably won't feel like doing it, even if you might otherwise have wanted to. Widely studied by Jack and Sharon Brim since 1966, this law has long been the bane of managers, healthcare professionals, and parents. In fact, the harder the other person tries to get you to do something, the more he yells at you, the more he insists, threatens you with dire consequences, the less you're going to want to do it, and the less likely you are to actually do it. Ever since the Brims identified this key aspect of the human personality, they and other researchers have conducted thousands of experiments, first to investigate whether their initial insight was accurate, and then to understand this response in more detail. Obviously, there's not room to review the massive amount of research carried out on this topic, but let me share with you some of the most interesting studies. In an experiment that has since become famous, researchers invited college students to survey a number of group problem-solving tasks and rate them high, low, or neutral interest. They were then given time to engage in any task they wanted during 2 sessions separated by a short break as experimenters monitored their preferences. However, during the break, these, quote, Confederates, student researchers pretending to be participants, strongly encouraged the subjects to pick certain tasks and to avoid others as they entered the second round. So they set up this experiment and they asked these college students to rate these different tasks, and they planted these moles in the experiment. And these moles, these Confederates, were strongly encouraging the subjects to pick certain tasks and to avoid others. You probably have guessed what happened next. The tasks that the subjects were encouraged to avoid became the very ones that interested them the most. In fact, based on their actions, they were even more interested in these, quote, forbidden items than in the ones they had previously rated high interest. Now, you may be thinking, sure, forbidden fruit is sweetest. Of course the students wanted to do what they were told not to do, but what if the student had been interested in certain tasks and were then instructed to do them? Would they avoid these simply because they'd been told to choose them? In fact, that's exactly what happened. The study, along with numerous follow-ups, showed that people were likely to avoid what they had been told to choose and to choose what they had been told to avoid. This was true even if they had previously shown interest in something. Telling people to choose an activity, even one they liked, almost guaranteed that they would then avoid it. That's how much people dislike being told what to do. That's how much people dislike being told what to do. So the law of psychological reactance says people, including you, are less likely to do something simply because they're told to do it. Whether that is losing weight, flossing your teeth, driving the speed limit, filling out daily logs, following a customer communication policy, showing up for work on time. People are less likely to do something simply because you tell them to do it. So what I've found is that the reason people won't change, the reason people won't follow a process isn't because of the process. It isn't because of what's in the process. In many cases, it's the way you present the process. It's in the attempt to cram it down their throats that doesn't work. So beware of psychological reactance, because if you engage psychological reactance, if you trigger that, it will reduce or almost guarantee that your team won't change. It will almost guarantee they will actively resist it. Number two, there are several diseases like scurvy, rickets, beriberi, anemia. There's several diseases that used to be, back in history, used to be deadly, and scientists of the day thought that these terrible diseases were caused by the presence of something like cold, bacteria, darkness, whatever. They thought it was the presence of something. And they did all sorts of unusual things to try to alleviate the problem. But the root cause of all of these diseases was and continues to be, a deficiency. So it's not the presence of something, it's the absence of something. And one of the reasons I found why people won't change, why they won't embrace a process, why they won't use software, why they won't change their behavior, is because there are a couple of deficiencies. Sort of like a vitamin C deficiency leads to scurvy. There are two specific deficiencies. One is the why deficiency. If you're rolling out a process, using new software, rolling out a new policy, one of the reasons people don't change, why they won't embrace it, is they don't understand why they're doing it. Why am I doing this? Why am I changing? What problem does this solve? These are some questions. Why? If you roll out a process and you don't explain why, people are much less likely to embrace it. So they're wondering, why spend the time on this? Why change? How is this helping the customer? How is this helping our trade partners? How is this helping the team? How does this connect to our mission? If you have maybe you have a bigger issue in that your company, that your team doesn't understand why your company exists. Maybe you have a broader, more general why deficiency. They don't understand the mission, the vision of your company. Why are we doing this? And this specific process, how does this connect to our mission? Why are we doing this? One thing to watch out for, one of the reasons people don't change, is because this new policy, this new process it's a problem, it's a solution in search of a problem, okay? If your new policy is a solution in search of a problem, people won't embrace it because it doesn't solve any problem. It doesn't solve a problem. So make sure you solve the why deficiency. And then there's the WIIFM deficiency, which is the what's in it for me. This is the question people need answered. What's in it for me to do this? Why should I change? What is in it for me? The WIIFM deficiency. I've heard it said that is everyone's favorite radio station. WIIFM stands for what's in it for me. So how is this policy, process, software, how's it going to make my life easier? How is this going to help me be more efficient? How is this going to help me? What's in it for me? So one quick little tip, little trick I heard a restaurant consultant share this. Her job was to go open restaurants, new restaurants, get things set up, brand new restaurants, new staff, everything. And she hung a clipboard by the back door where the kitchen staff would leave. And at the top of the clipboard on the piece of paper, it was called the MMDD list, the Made My Day Difficult list. And what she asked her staff would be, as you leave, write down one thing or two things that made your day difficult. And people would jot these things down. And these were the real problems. And then when she saw multiple people writing the same thing down, she realized this is a problem that needs solved. This is a problem in search of a solution. And the people were saying this is a problem. This is what needs to be solved. So avoid being a solution in search of a problem, and make sure that what you're trying to roll out helps your team, it solves a problem, and then solve that deficiency, those deficiencies, the why deficiency and the what's in it for me deficiency. It's one of the other reasons why people don't embrace change, is because they don't have the answer to why are we doing this and what's in it for me. The third reason why people refuse to change, or why seemingly they refuse to change, is an interesting psychological dynamic that I just learned about recently that makes a whole lot of sense. This sheds a lot of light on why people won't change, right? If you've ever talked with people and they're saying all the right things. Yes, I want to do this. Yes, I want to change. Yes, I'm excited about this new change, but they just won't do it. And you feel like you're just banging your head against the wall. Maybe you feel like they're lying to you, but it seems like they genuinely want to change, but they just can't. This could be what's going on. I'm going to read an excerpt from a Harvard Business Review article from Robert Kagan and Lisa Leahy. They said there's a psychological dynamic called a, quote, competing commitment. A competing commitment. And until managers understand how it works and the ways to overcome it, they can't do a thing about change-resistant employees. So if you have change-resistant employees, listen up. This could be what's going on. Here's what they said in their article. Every manager is familiar with the employee who just won't change. Sometimes it's easy to see why. The employee fears a shift in power. They fear the need to learn new skills, the stress of having to join a new team. In other cases, this resistance is far more puzzling. An employee has the skills and the smarts to make a change with ease, has shown a deep commitment to the company. They genuinely support the change, and yet, inexplicably, they do nothing. What's going on? As organizational psychologists, this is Robert Kagan and Lisa Leahy, as organizational psychologists, we've seen this dynamic literally hundreds of times, and our research and analysis have recently led us to a surprising yet deceptively simple conclusion. Resistance to change does not reflect opposition, nor is it merely a result of inertia. Instead, as they hold a sincere commitment to change, many people are unwittingly applying productive energy toward a hidden competing commitment. The resulting dynamic equilibrium stalls the effort in what looks like resistance, but is in fact a kind of personal immunity to change. It looks like resistance, but is in fact a personal immunity to change. When you, as a manager, uncover an employee's competing commitment, behavior that has seemed irrational and ineffective suddenly becomes stunningly sensible and masterful. But, unfortunately, on behalf of a goal that conflicts with what you and even the employee are trying to achieve, you find out that the project leader who's dragging his feet has an unrecognized competing commitment to avoid the even tougher assignment, one he fears he can't handle that might come his way next if he delivers too successfully on the task at hand. Or you find that the person who won't collaborate despite a passionate and sincere commitment to teamwork is equally dedicated to avoiding the conflict that naturally attends any ambitious team activity. Hey guys, Todd here, and if you're a custom home builder, a remodeler, or a general contractor, and you'd like to learn how to get paid for estimates, if you're tired of giving away your time and expertise, giving away 30, 60, 80 hours a month every month for free, then there's a free masterclass that we're making available to you for the first time in a few years. It's our Get Paid for Estimates masterclass that hundreds of builders, remodelers, and GCs have used in the past few years to end the practice of free estimates. When you enroll in this free masterclass, there are three main things that you'll learn. Number one, you'll learn that your ideal customer wants to pay you for pre-construction work because it's in their best interest. Number two, you'll learn that it's really not hard to sell your prospect on it when you get clear on just a few things. And then number three, you'll learn the 5-piece Get Paid for Estimates bridge that you need to have in place in order to finally get paid for estimates. You'll get everything you need to get paid for estimates. The sales scripts with the exact questions you can ask your prospect to get them to see the value in it, an agreement template you can use, pricing guidance. You'll hear interviews with builders and remodelers and general contractors who have done this successfully. You're going to get everything you need to have the confidence to go out and actually do it. So if you're ready to end the practice of free estimates, then go enroll in the free Get Paid for Estimates masterclass over at constructionleadingedge.com/start today. Hit pause on this episode, go to constructionleadingedge.com/start, START, and let's join the movement to end the practice of free estimates. Now, let's get back to the episode. Let's take a look at an example. This is Helen. Helen was a rising star at a large manufacturing company. Helen had been assigned responsibility for speeding up production of the company's most popular product, yet she was spinning her wheels. When her boss, Andrew, realized that an important deadline was only 2 months away and she hadn't filed a single progress report, Andrew called her into a meeting to discuss the project. Helen agreed that she was far behind schedule, acknowledging that she had been stalling in pulling together the team, but at the same time, she showed a genuine commitment to making the project a success. The two developed a detailed plan for changing direction, and Andrew assumed the problem was solved. But 3 weeks after the meeting, Helen still hadn't launched the team. Why was Helen unable to change her behavior? It's a great question. After intense self-examination in a workshop with several of her colleagues, she came to an unexpected conclusion. Although Helen truly wanted the project to succeed, she had an accompanying, unacknowledged, competing commitment to maintain a subordinate position in relation to Andrew. She had an accompanying, unacknowledged, competing commitment to maintaining a subordinate position in her relation to Andrew. At a deep level, Helen was concerned that if she succeeded in her new role, one that she was excited about and eager to undertake, she was concerned if she succeeded, she would become more of a peer than a subordinate to Andrew. She was uncertain whether Andrew was prepared for the turn that their relationship would take. Worse, a promotion would mean that she, not Andrew, would ultimately be accountable for the results of her work, and Helen feared she wouldn't be up to the task. So here's the process, and I'll share some more examples here that may resonate with you. You may look at some of your team and think, they genuinely care, they're bought into the vision of the company, they say they want to do this, but they just seems like they just can't. And here's why. There's a 4-part process. There's, number one, the stated commitment. This is the thing they're committed to. The second part is to ask the question, they would ask themselves the question, what am I doing or not doing that is keeping the stated commitment from being realized? The third part is to identify the competing commitment. And then that competing commitment is often tied to or predicated on the fourth part, which is a big assumption. All right, so let's look at a couple of examples from this study. The first part, so again, stated commitment. What am I doing that's keeping the stated commitment from being fully realized? What's the competing commitment? And then what's the big assumption? So Tom's stated commitment is that hearing from my subordinates, he's committed to hearing from his subordinates and maximizing the flow of information into his office. What is Tom doing or not doing that's keeping that from happening? Tom doesn't ask questions. or doesn't ask to be kept in the loop on sensitive or delicate matters. Tom shoots the messenger when he hears bad news. And Tom found out that his competing commitment was, quote, I am committed to not learning about things I can't do anything about. That's predicated on the big assumption that Tom was making was, I assume as a leader, I should be able to address all problems. I assume that I'll be seen as incompetent if I can't solve all the problems that come up. Mary was committed to distributed leadership by enabling people to make decisions. But here's what Mary was doing that was keeping that from happening. Mary doesn't delegate enough. She doesn't pass on the necessary information to the people that she distributes leadership to. So she says, I want my people to make decisions, but she doesn't delegate and she doesn't give those people the information. Frustrating, right? Here's the competing commitments. Maybe it's the competing commitment. Mary was committed to having things go her way, to being in control, and to ensuring that the work is done to her high standards, which is based on the big assumption that other people will waste my time and theirs if I don't step in. Mary assumes others aren't as smart as she is. Let's look at a couple of specific construction examples. Right? We'll talk about Kate, who is a fictitious selections coordinator working in pre-construction. And her stated commitment is to follow our policy, our communication policy of only communicating with clients during normal business hours and only communicating with them through Buildertrend. You're like, is that even possible? Yes, it is. And you should only be communicating with your clients through your software like Buildertrend and only during normal business hours. What was Kate doing? That's keeping the stated commitment from being realized. She's responding to texts. She gave the customer her cell number. She's responding to texts and emails instead of only through Buildertrend. And sometimes she's even responding to texts after hours. Why would she do that? Kate says, yep, I love our communication policy. We need to do it, but she doesn't. Why is that? Well, there's a competing commitment. And Kate is committed. Her competing commitment is she's committed to not upsetting the relationship with the client. She's committed to keeping them happy, not upsetting the relationship with the client. And her big assumption is she assumes the customer will be mad at her if she doesn't respond immediately, if she doesn't let them have it their way. And she assumes that her manager will get upset if the customer gets upset, even though they have a documented policy. So as you can see, Kate has a competing commitment. She is committed to not upsetting the relationship with the client. And she's assuming that if she says to the client, here's our communication policy. Please send this through Buildertrend. We'll communicate with you during normal business hours. She assumes they'll get upset, angry. She assumes her manager will get angry. As you can see, that's going to keep her from following that process. Let's talk about Steve, who is a superintendent on the job site. Steve's stated commitment is Steve will fill out daily logs on each project every day. And it's one of his big 5. They're detailed specifications for daily logs. Okay, so he's committed. Yes, one of my big 5 activities is to fill out a daily log. What's he doing or not doing that's keeping the stated commitment from being realized? Well, he's about 75% on his daily logs, and sometimes they're missing information. And he's spending too much of his time with the tool bag on, actually working alongside the crew and trade partners. That's what he's doing. If you dig into it, you might find that Steve's competing commitment is Steve is committed to being the guy who builds stuff. He believes that his job as a superintendent is to build stuff. He is committed to being the, quote, Johnny on the spot whenever there's a problem. Subcontractor has a problem, he'll strap on his cape and come to the rescue and solve it for them. They need something laid out, I'll stop what I'm doing, no matter what it is, and I'll come help you. Customer has a question, customer wants to walk through something, customer wants to do a job site visit, Steve's going to jump in, do whatever he has to do to make them happy. Supplier has an issue, he'll just jump into action. Somebody needs material, he'll jump into his truck. He's mostly reactive. So his competing commitment is he is committed to being the problem solver, to being the firefighter, to being Johnny on the spot. And the big assumption that Steve's making is Steve assumes that the guys and gals in the field won't respect him because he's not working with tools on. He assumes that the best way he can add value is to be a good firefighter. He assumes, maybe he's even seen this, that guys in the field will see him with his phone or his iPad entering his daily log, and guys in the field will yell, "Hey, Steve, is it thumb day? And why don't you get off your ass and get out here and actually do some work like you used to?" So he assumes that the best way he can add value is to be a good firefighter. He assumes that getting stuff done and solving problems is his job, not documenting things. He assumes that getting problems solved, being a firefighter, is more important than documenting the project. It's more important than the flow of information. Those are the assumptions. So those are the competing commitments. So as you can see, as you can imagine, Steve says, yes, daily logs are very important. I want to do it. But then out on the job site, he has this competing commitment. He is committed to these other things, which makes it very difficult in the moment for him to do that thing that he's committed to. So be aware of competing commitments. And chances are you have some competing commitments that are based on some big assumptions. So look in the mirror. Take yourself through this process. What's your stated commitment? I'm committed to fill in the blank. And then what am I doing or not doing that's keeping me from my stated commitment being fully realized? What are you doing that is opposing your stated commitment? Number 3, what are your competing commitments? What are you committed to that is in competition with your stated commitment? And then number 4, what are the assumptions that you're making? Very important to understand, uncover those competing commitments and get to the truth of those. So far we've talked about the number one reason your team won't change is psychological reactance. Number 2 is there are some deficiencies, the Y deficiency and the WIIFM deficiency. Number 3, this concept of competing commitments. And let's talk about number 4. I've seen this one over and over and over and over. Have you ever started an initiative? Okay. Started an initiative and there was excitement up front. People were engaged. They're on board. Maybe you're having working sessions about it. There are messages going back and forth, and people are just seem to have big mo on your side. Momentum, big mo. But then it kind of fizzles out. People stop responding. Interest sort of wanes a little bit. Somebody doesn't show up to the working session, and then it just seems to spiral downward and pretty much fizzles out, loses all momentum, and goes back to the status quo. Has that ever happened with you? Have you ever wondered, why is that? Why? Maybe it's happened over and over and over. Why is that? Well, there's a concept that a professor at Harvard, the Harvard Business School, her name is Rosabeth Moss Kanter. She has what's called Kanter's Law. You may want to write this down. This is the reason people don't change. Kanter's Law says in the middle, everything looks like a failure. Okay? Kanter's Law says that in the middle, everything looks like a failure. Started off strong, but then motivation waned. People start to forget about it. Why should I bother? Here's what happens. It's because people give up and lose interest and lose motivation. They don't change because the last time you tried something as a team, the last time they tried something, the last time they saw one of these initiatives, then they got into the middle. Kanter's Law kicked in that said, in the middle, everything looks like a failure, and they quit because of Kanter's Law. Ran into some unexpected obstacles. Maybe they were a few weeks or a few months in, but then they're so far away from expectations. People lost interest. Looks like a failure, so you quit. So beware of Kanter's Law. It says in the middle, everything looks like a failure. So what about you? When was the last time that happened to you? When was the last time you rolled something out? People seemed motivated. There was some energy. There was some momentum. But then you got into the middle of it and it just fizzled out because in the middle, everything looks like a failure. So be aware of Kanter's law. And if you're going to start an initiative, you're going to, and everybody loves to start stuff, right? Who doesn't love to start stuff? The beginning is exciting. It's fun, but it's the implementation, it's the execution that's the secret sauce. So I heard something recently that when you're there, when you're at a low point and Kanter's law is kicking in and it looks like a failure, when you're in the middle and it looks like a failure, when you're in the messy middle, so to speak, tell yourself, you may want to write this down. This is when most people quit. This is when most people quit. And if you'll just persevere, if you'll just persist, then you'll get through it. So it's not a failure. It just looks like a failure when you're in the middle. All right, number 5 reminds me of a time I was running a sewer rehabilitation company. Okay, this was 10 or 12 years ago. Running a sewer rehabilitation company. And one Monday morning, the owner came in and pulled everybody into his office. He's like, I've got this, something that's incredibly important, need to talk about. And he spent the next 4 hours telling us about how he had this new vision. We're going to build housing for retired people. Okay, remember, this was a sewer rehabilitation company, a utility company. Everything we did was underground. And he unveiled this vision and spent 4 hours telling us about how this is the most important thing now. We're going to build housing for retired folks. We need to reallocate all of our resources toward this. And he spent 4 hours from 8 a.m. Actually, it was 5 hours, 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. We talked about this, okay? We walked out of that meeting and never heard another word about it. Never heard another word about it. So here's what happens. You, as the leader, you're a visionary, you go to a trade show, you go to a conference, you read an email, maybe you have a dream, you see a burning bush, you have some piece of information drops into your consciousness you find out about, and it's a shiny object. Ooh, look at that shiny object. That would be really cool. We should do that. You're constantly listening to TED Talks. This is one of the problems with constantly reading business books is they're full of shiny objects. So shiny object syndrome on the part of the leader is one of the reasons people won't change, because this shiny object comes along and you have this meeting, you unveil this vision, and your team has been through this a few times. And they're listening and they're thinking to themselves, okay, this is the shiny object du jour. This is the thing that he's or she is fascinated by right now, and this is going to go away, just like the last 4 or 5 things that sounded just like this. So it's just another idea they have. Listen, go back to work. They'll forget about it soon enough because it's just a shiny object, and pretty soon they'll be on to the next shiny object. Reminds me of when I was right out of college on one of the very first construction jobs. I worked for a large commercial general contractor, and this was in the 90s. And back then, wearing safety equipment, harnesses and hard hats, was, at least in this part of the country, was not a given. So one of the constant challenges was getting people to wear hard hats. This was an $8 million project, pretty good sized project, and I remember these fire protection guys, sprinkler guys, would be up in a lift, they would be working up on a ladder, and I would see their hard hat sitting on the ground, and I'd walk by time after time and say, hey, you guys got to wear your hard hat. Got to wear your hard hat. Got to wear your hard hat. Finally, I said, hey, do you guys want to work here the rest of the day? You guys planning on working on this job the rest of the day? And I looked at 2 of them, and they looked at each other and then looked at me and said, well, yeah, we're going to be here for several weeks, like maybe months. I said, great. If you want to work here, it's fine. If you're going to work here, you have to wear a hard hat. If you don't want to wear a hard hat, that's fine. You can go work at another job site. But if you're going to work here, you have to wear a hard hat. And the guy kind of dropped his head and was like, okay, well, I had to see if you were serious about it. He just kept trying me because he had to see if I was serious about it. Finally, he realized, all right, this guy is serious about it. He's not going to let it go. And he wore a hard hat from then on. So people have to know you're serious about this thing, that this new software process or whatever is not just, it's not just another shiny object. Because here's what happens. Shiny object syndrome results in what I've heard is called organizational whiplash. Organizational whiplash. This is very common with the visionaries that we talk to. They have shiny object syndrome. Hey, we're going to go do this. And we're going to go 100 miles an hour in this direction. And then, there's another shiny object. Okay, pivot, hard left turn. We're going to go 100 miles an hour in this direction for a few weeks or a month until I lose interest. And then, there's another shiny object syndrome that gets me excited because I love starting stuff and I hate finishing stuff. So we're going to go in that direction because it feels good. It's exciting to start things. So beware of organizational whiplash. If you're going to roll out an initiative for your team, make sure it's high priority. Make sure you're going to stick to it. Make sure you don't make some of these mistakes. Avoid these mistakes. So to recap, these are the real reasons your team won't change. Psychological reactance, number one. Number two, the deficiencies, the Y deficiency and the WIIFM deficiency. Number three, they have competing commitments. Competing commitments. Number four is Kanter's law, where in the middle, everything looks like a failure. And then number five is shiny object syndrome. So here's my question, my challenge for you. Two challenges. Which of these could be why your team isn't following that process, using that software, or changing? Is it psychological reactance, the way you have presented these things to them? Are you guilty? Are you suffering from some deficiencies in the why and the what's in it for me? Do they have some unacknowledged competing commitments that need to be resolved? Is it because of Kanter's law, or is it because of you, because of your shiny object syndrome? But which of those could be the reason or reasons why your team isn't following a process? Is it possible that you don't need a whole new team? Is it possible that your people aren't 100% of the problem? Sometimes they are, but is it possible that you have good people, the right people? You just need to adjust, make some simple adjustments to the way you're developing your processes and how you're presenting those processes. And then my final challenge for you is, what is your action item? What are you going to do with this information? How will you apply this to a real problem? Make sure this is a problem in search of a solution, okay? What's a problem you're trying to solve? What is a process or you're trying to implement, or some way you want to get your team to change? How can you use these concepts to help solve that problem? So what is your action item? What is maybe it's a 5-minute action item, something that you can do in 5 minutes, something simple. Schedule a meeting, send a text, make a phone call, book a call with our team, which you'll hear about more in just a minute. But what is your 5-minute action item? I would challenge you to take action on this. Otherwise, the last 40 or 45 minutes have just been, it's interesting, but you're only going to get value out of this by taking action. So there you go. I hope this helps. Be on the lookout for more content, more training on this concept of how do I get my team on board to actually follow a process. Hey, it's Todd again. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for more details over at constructionleadingedge.com/podcast. And if you get value out of this podcast, would you do me a favor? Would you please leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify? And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you own a construction business and you feel stuck, or you feel like you're spending too much time in day-to-day firefighting, maybe dealing with all of the problems, if everything's stuck in your head, or if you just don't feel like you have time or energy to work on your business because you feel like you're stuck working in it, if you want your business to run without you so you can take a vacation, or maybe to be able to sell your business one day, or if you just frankly want the business to survive if something happens to you, then there are 4 crucial systems that you need to have in place. Number one, if you're a home builder, remodeler, or commercial general contractor, you have to get paid for estimates. Those free estimates are killing your bottom line, sucking the life out of you. And you can get all the tools you need to get paid for estimates, the templates, sales scripts, pricing guidance, and let's face it, the confidence that you need. You can get all of that for free right now over at constructionleadingedge.com/start. You'll get the entire Get Paid for Estimates masterclass. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/start. You can get all of that for free. The second crucial system is that you need to design your business for the future. You need to establish the major functions of your business and the results that each function is accountable for. You need to have clearly defined roles and responsibilities. This is the foundation of every successful business, and the best way to do that is to design your accountability chart for the future. Number 3, you need to design and document your process to nail the handoff from the office to the field. This is a very disciplined and documented process that maps out every step of the pre-construction process. Look, companies that are good construction companies are actually good pre-construction companies. They're good pre-construction companies. And when you design your nail the handoff process and you have this in place, this is going to eliminate 80% of the profit bleeds and the schedule delays and chaos on your job sites. And you'll also need to learn the secret sauce for getting your team to actually implement and follow a process. Number 4, the fourth crucial system are the leadership systems that your team will use to convert your goals into reality. Look, somebody needs to be planning tomorrow's work today. Someone needs to be doing a 2-week look ahead. Someone needs to be establishing the most important things for the next 6 to 8 weeks, and you need to be having regular team meetings that are actually functional. Those are your leadership systems. And if you would like our help putting those crucial systems in place in your business so that your business can run without you, so you can get out of day-to-day firefighting and take that firefighter hat off, or if you want to be able to sell your business one day, here's the next step. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply and schedule a free business evaluation call with our team. On that call, we're going to do a few things. We'll help you uncover the real root causes of your problems. Number 2, help you get clear on your objectives that you want to accomplish. And then number 3, to map out a plan to make it a reality. We'll also share with you some of the things that our construction business owner clients are doing to accomplish their goals and solve the problems that you're probably dealing with. And then if you're a fit, if it looks like we have a good mutual fit, we'll discuss our Systematize Your Construction Business program. So to schedule your free business evaluation, head on over to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY. Hey, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.